other day, I came across the article where it says fraud has increased about 70% in just the last 2 years. And this got me to thinking maybe I should create a video on how you can protect yourself online, because these attacks and these strategies for criminals are becoming more and more prevalent. In this video, I'm going to go over the most common attacks that occur. I'm also going to go over how you can protect yourself from these attacks and what I personally do. The first and most terrifying attack to me is called SIM swapping. This is essentially when a hacker calls up your phone company and performs a social engineering attack and actually steals your phone number, and then they go ahead and they reset all of your accounts. It's not that difficult to do. There has been reports of people transferring money from their bank accounts and then wiping them clean, that people hijack YouTube and social media accounts. No phone carrier is immune to SIM swapping. T-Mobile, Verizon, Google Fi have been hacked. Your information might actually be out there on some database on the dark web somewhere that someone can buy and then try to steal your number. In order to protect yourself from this type of attack is, number one, have a burner email address that you don't share with anybody else, and you only use it for special types of accounts, and it can't be traced back to you. I have around 10 or 12 email addresses that I use all for different accounts. The second thing that I personally do is I have a burner phone with a second number that I also don't give out to anybody. This might sound a little extreme. I'm honestly just a little bit paranoid. There are plenty of really affordable plans out there that you could get for like maybe $200 a year for this second phone number. The third one is you can use hardware authentication, such as the YubiKey. This is a great option. I personally don't use it, but I know a lot of people who do and have good success. It's much more secure than SMS. You don't have to pay a yearly fee. The other options are to use a SIM lock, meaning that you have to type in a SIM PIN every time that you use the card. And this prevents unauthorized access to the SIM and prevents SIM swapping. The next thing you have to be really aware of on the internet is free things. I am so skeptical of free anything, even free content, because I really think someone is probably trying to sell me something somewhere. I pay for all of my movies, I pay for all of my software, I pay for courses. I am not tempted by anything free. You should be especially aware if you're using pirated software or even a free VPN, because a lot of that pirated software does have malware in it. Someone is trying to make money off of you, and free VPNs and things of that, oftentimes they're selling all of your data. So be aware of free. The next really common attack on any type of website is password attacks. When you have a password and a username, oftentimes, if that company has a breach, someone will be able to gain access to your password, essentially. And if that person knows your accounts and your one email address that you may have, then they can just use that password to get into basically all of your accounts. This can be mitigated with two-factor authentication, but a lot of people don't use two-factor authentication. And now sometimes you even have to pay for 2FA, but one, change your password frequently. Number two, use a password generator. I think KeePass is free. You don't need to pay for it. If you're really technically savvy, you could probably just create your own password generator. Also, avoid saving your passwords in your browser. If you click on a link, they can actually hijack your browser and then get into your account without 2FA. So don't save any passwords and be very careful on what links that you choose. The next really common attack is a phishing attack, and I'm sure you may have seen this, but it's one of the most common and malicious ways that people get hacked. It's also in companies, it's one of the easiest ways to gain initial access for hackers into the network. Is essentially you get an email that looks pretty legit and you open it and then you click on the link or you download some attachment to see what it is. Now, I've gotten tons of these and they're usually not very good. Like, there'll be a lot of spelling errors or the domain is nothing like the domain it should be, but oftentimes it's like super tempting, right? You just got charged $300 for this one item. make sure to look at the domain that it's coming from. The next common attack is malware. This can be described as unwanted software installed into your system. This can be done by a variety of ways. The first one being phishing attacks, which we just talked about. But the second one, I mean, now they've gotten very clever. This Google Ads malware installed. So even if you click on Google Ads, sometimes it will actually redirect you to a link to download software, which is actually downloading malware. If you check the actual domain names of these, oftentimes there's one letter that is off. Be very careful on where you download software. And along with the malware comes the ransomware. You have to pay a fee to get your data back. Make sure to always have any important documents not stored on your hard drive, but stored within a cloud using a burner email address or a separate hard drive. There's also spyware, which tracks everything that you're doing along with gathering your passwords when you type it into a website that they later can then harvest that data. The next really common thing that can lead to having your identity stolen or being tracked is having apps you don't use. Every app you have on your phone actually increases your likelihood of being hacked. And that is because they all have vulnerabilities, and a lot of these free apps actually sell your data. So that includes your location data. The spyware Pegasus that tracks everything that you do actually was able to be exploited through Facebook WhatsApp missed phone call. The best way to mitigate this is to delete all apps that you don't actively use. The next attack that you should be very aware of is man-in-the-middle attacks. And this is when a malicious actor intercepts the communication of you and eavesdrops on exactly what you're doing. So a really common example of man-in-the-middle attack is a fake public Wi-Fi network that appears to be legitimate, and then you go in and connect to it, but it's actually just an attacker sniffing or viewing all of your traffic. If you are only using HTTPS, a lot of your account information will still be encrypted when you go and log into various accounts, but they can see what you're doing. So make sure to only use HTTPS and not HTTP. A lot of browsers actually won't let you go to HTTP anymore. Thankfully, they'll give you like a warning message. Another really common man-in-the-middle attack is a thing called DNS spoofing. This is when an attacker actually intercepts a user's request to access a website, then redirects them to a fake website that looks identical to the legitimate one. And then once you go ahead and you log in your sensitive information, such as your credit card numbers, your usernames, your password that you may use for all of your accounts, they can actually gather all of that information because you just entered it on a fake website. Sometimes these are pretty realistic looking, so always make sure to look at that domain name up at the top. So if you go to any type of public place, it's always good to use a VPN. They can be very helpful in encrypting all of your traffic. So in case you do accidentally connect to the wrong network, it'll be much harder to figure out what you're doing. And so that concludes my ultimate guide on how to stay secure online. If you're interested in any more of these videos, go ahead and check out below, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks.